Hey everyone, Dylan here from AYCB Board, and today I've got a special video for you, and that is to take you through the top 5 games that I played in 2020, but I'm also going to take you through the top 5 games that I didn't play in 2020 that I most want to play. And that's because 2020 was an interesting year, and there's a lot of games that I just didn't get around to playing that I probably had a great chance of cracking my top games of 2020 list. And there's some that I could have played, but it would have been under circumstances where we could only play with 2 players, even though the games are recommended for 3 or 4, and it wouldn't have been the best way to experience some of these games. It wouldn't have been fair to properly critique them that way. So there are some games that I'm anticipating playing, but just haven't got around to playing. I wanted to give that list to you as well so that you can see why some games aren't on my top games of 2020. That being said, we're going to start with the top 5 games that I didn't play but most want to play from 2020, and then I'll take you into my overall top 5 games of 2020. Let's jump right into it. Kicking off the list of top 5 games that I wish that I played in 2020 but didn't is Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. And this one was an easy pick for this list. It was just a matter of slotting it in somewhere. That's because I played a ton of the original Gloomhaven. I had a consistent 4-player group that went for like around 2 years, meeting either weekly or bi-weekly or monthly whenever we could. So I love Gloomhaven. Jaws of the Lion, I'll admit, kind of flew under my radar at the start because I was kind of under the impression that it was more of an introductory experience for people who maybe weren't familiar with Gloomhaven, which is true to an extent, but there's also a lot of really cool stuff in there for expert players as well, and ones like me who have played a whole ton of the original Gloomhaven. Carlo from AYCB has played through the entire campaign, which means that it is ready for me to pick up and play through my own campaign of it. So that one I will be getting to the table very soon, but I'm super stoked to do so because more Gloomhaven. There's really no other explanation that more classes, more scenarios, more Gloomhaven, new advancements on the design of scenarios based on things they've learned from the original. I can't wait to play it, and I've heard really, really great things even from Carlo on it. So that's my number 5, Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. My number 4 game that I wish I played in 2020 is a game I actually wish I knew about more in 2020, and that is Dwellings of Eldervale. This game completely was not even on my radar until later in the year when it started to crack other people's lists and it started to find its way into the hot list on Board Game Geek. And then as soon as I saw it, immediately checking all the right boxes, and I'm super excited to play this game now. It almost has the look of a campaign game. It's not a campaign game, but that's exactly what I thought it was at first glance. But it is a worker placement game, which is one of my favorite mechanics, and it's got a whole bunch of really cool stuff going on. The theme is the first thing that jumps out at me because it's a theme I'm just very attracted to. But there's battles, there's monsters, there's elemental tracks you're moving up, there's the realms that are out that you can place workers on. Everything there, it just has me super pumped. I cannot wait to try this game. As soon as I have an opportunity to get it, I'm going to. I just want to also be able to have the group to actually experience it with. But that's Dwellings of Eldervale, my number 4. Super excited to play this game. My number 3 game that I didn't play in 2020 but wish I had is Sleeping Gods. Now this is an interesting one because I am purposely going into this one knowing as little as possible, so a lot of my excitement is based on mystique. I don't know a whole ton about this game because I don't want anything spoiled for me. Aside from the fact that it is a campaign storytelling game, you're uncovering the world as you explore. It's a cooperative game. It's sort of Atlas style, the book that the Atlas book that comes with it. Every page is a different part of the world, and you're exploring as you go, and you're moving from page to page, from what I understand. But I don't want anything spoiled for me. I don't want to know too much. I want to kind of just go into it a little bit blind and experience it. I am anticipating that I'm going to love this game. I've heard enough good things about it, and I'm a big enough fan of these exploration style campaign games as it is that I anticipate liking it, but I could be completely off base, and there's a chance that I'll play it and be completely disappointed, but I think that chance is pretty low. So based on mystique alone and my excitement level because of it, that's Sleeping Gods, my number 3. My number 2 game that I didn't play in 2020 but wish that I had is Tekhenu, and the reason being that I'm a huge fan. I love Tzolk'in and I loved Teotihuacan, both by Daniel Tasini. I'm a huge fan of his design and just the way that he has crafted those 2 games. And this is essentially the 3rd game in that trilogy, or that pseudo trilogy of games. As soon as I heard about it, it was a game that I knew I wanted in my collection and knew I wanted to play. It's always tough when games are similar a bit in style, and you have this trilogy of games. It's happened the same thing with like Cottage Garden, Spring Meadow, and Indian Summer. they all do similar things, and after you own all three, there might be one that is, you know, above and beyond the rest, the one that you're going to want to go to. For all I know, I'm going to get to Kenu, and I'm always going to want to revisit Zolkin out of the three more so, and it's going to sort of, you know, I don't want to say fade into obscurity, but be one that hits my table a little less. That being said, because I love the other two so much, and it's so close between them which one I'd rather play, adding a third one into the mix is just, I guess, a recipe for disaster for me, because then I'm never going to decide which one to play. But I'm intrigued enough, and I love the other two enough that I can't not play this game. But again, to properly experience it, I need to play with more people. We noticed that with Teotihuacan. Carlo and I both played that a few times, 2-player to start, and having played with 3 people after the fact, it felt very different, and something that, you know, I think you really needed to experience that game at multiple player counts to properly appreciate it and get a full idea of what the game does and how it plays. Tekenu, I imagine, will be the same way. So to get it now, I'm max playing with 2 people until things open up. I'm not going to be able to properly experience it. So I'm going to have to wait on that one until I can get a group together to play it. But as soon as I can, I'm going to be over the moon about it, over the sun about it. So that is Tekenu, my number 2 game that I didn't play in 2020, but wish that I had. All right, and my number 1 game that I did not play in 2020, but wish that I had, and I really wish that I had because of how much buzz and attention this game has got, that is Lost Ruins of Arnak. If you're a frequenter of Board Game Geek in the community, watching other people's top games of 2020, you've probably already heard of this game. You might have even played it yourself. I've had the opportunity to buy it, and I would have already played it, but realistically, I would have been playing with only 2 people, and I don't think that's enough to do this game justice. So I'm waiting until I can properly experience it. This is a deck building game, but also a worker placement game. 2 of my favorite mechanics combined into one. It's got a massive board, a whole bunch of stuff going on. You're adding new spots for your workers to go every game. Just there's so much to be excited about. The theme itself is something that is not, you know, by no means new to board games. Games like Lost Cities do this theme. Games like Quest for El Dorado do this theme. There's a whole bunch more. That's not new, but I'm a fan of it regardless. The artwork and the style is really, really good. So much to be excited about in this game, but just the buzz alone, it's hard not to, I'm not saying I want to just buy into the hype, but it's a game that is on so many lists and gained so much attention that I have a feeling that had I played it, there's a good chance it would have cracked my top 5. So I wish for that, even that reason alone, that I had played it. It's one of the first games that as soon as things open up and I can play with bigger groups, I'm going to be looking into getting myself so that I can play with groups. That is my number 1 game I wish I played in 2020, Lost Ruins of Arnak. All right, into the main event now, my top 5 games that I played in 2020. This is a really tough list to cut down. There were a lot of really good games that I played, but I'm pretty confident and happy with the ones I landed on. So my number 5 is Santa Monica. Now, this is the only game on the list that I don't actually personally own. This is in Carlo's collection, but I've played it enough, and I'm sure I'll be playing it more in the future. Santa Monica is a game that you should know I'm a sucker for really good artwork and themes. So if a game has that, it's already going to attract me to playing it and probably going to get some extra points in my book. I'm a huge fan of the artwork in this game and the style that it exudes. I'm a huge fan of Josh Wood as well. Just in his design for Cat Lady, and the stuff he's done on Tiny Towns and the expansion. Really, really solid stuff. Santa Monica is a great game. It's a tableau builder where you're sort of building out the strip on Santa Monica. You have the lower, I think it's called the boardwalk or just the street level area, and then you have the top level, which is the beach and the water and everything. And you're building that out on 2 sides, or top and bottom, but the abilities that you're trying to trigger involve moving different tourists around on these different spots to be able to fulfill different conditions where you have to have certain colors or amounts of people in different spots. You have to worry about the types of tile or types of cards that you're connecting to score points. You might have to collect a certain row of the same ones or whatever the case may be. There's a lot of really cool stuff going on. Nothing about the mechanics is necessarily groundbreaking. None of it's new, but the way that it implements them all and marries them all together, matched with the amazing art style and really cool theme, it just put it over the top for me. So this was an easy choice to make my list. It slots in at number 5, but if you haven't played Santa Monica, check out the videos we've done on it to learn more about them, or to learn more about it. But it's a really great game, one that I highly recommend checking out, and it doesn't take a lot to learn either. It's pretty simple to get to the table for those who maybe aren't expert gamers. That's Santa Monica, my number 5. Coming in at number 4 on my list is Castles of Tuscany. So the Castles of Burgundy is one of my all-time favorite games. If I was making a list of top 10 games of all time, there is a 99% chance that Castles of Burgundy is making that list, probably 99.9% chance. So Castles of Tuscany, for me personally, gets a lot of extra points because it brings a lot of the mechanics that I loved from Burgundy back, but it does them in a different way and in a new way, and lets me kind of reignite that nostalgia. If you wanted to know a little bit more about what I'm talking about, we did a video on it where I compare Burgundy and Tuscany and talk a little bit about that nostalgia, so you can check that out to hear more about my full thoughts on it. But just in general, the Castle of Tuscany is an easier game to get to the table than Castles of Burgundy is, and it does a lot of really cool things. It has a circular board with 2 different scoring tracks. One of them is the ultimate, final game scoring, but the other one is only translating each round, transferring your points to the main track. And the reason this is cool is because it rewards you for getting points earlier in the game. So when you play Castles of Tuscany, it doesn't feel like it's this slow start that is building to, an epic conclusion. It really feels like you hit the ground running. You're trying to do a lot from the get-go. And in all the games I've played, it's just been this really great tussle between you and your opponent, trying to, get the bonuses you can early on and to fight for the tiles that are available in the public display because everyone wants certain things for their boards. The powers are super fun to trigger, just like they were in Burgundy. You feel overpowered when you get the right color tile and are able to chain that into a bunch of different things. It has a bit of a Ticket to Ride feel to it, which I know some people don't like, but I do like Ticket to Ride, and I think that it's a classic. And I think bringing that card idea and set collection of cards into this mix was a cool, different twist on Burgundy's mechanics. I'm a huge fan of this game. It's not better than Castles of Burgundy. Castles of Burgundy is still a much better game, but Castles of Tuscany is well worth your time. And if you haven't experienced either of these games, this might actually be a decent entry point for someone who's wanting to ease their way into it, because this is a little bit of an easier game to experience. That's Castles of Tuscany. If you haven't played it, definitely check it out. If you've played Castles of Burgundy, even more reason to check this one out, because there's a lot of things that you'll love brought back into this one. Castles of Tuscany, my number 4. All right, number 3 is The Crew, The Quest for Planet 9. This has gotten a lot of attention. I'm glad it did, because this could have easily been a game that just flew under people's radars. It's a small card game. It's a trick-taking game. Not everyone loves trick-taking games. There's a few that came out this year, and this one is a cooperative one that does so many cool things that at the best of times makes you feel like a genius. And I think that that's what I love about this game. That the same thing happened when I played The Mind, and I likened it to that when I reviewed this game, in that The Mind makes you feel like you're just on this separate mental connection with your teammates, and you're pulling off these genius level plays of communicating, creating strategies without actually communicating. And that's exactly what The Crew does, but takes it to the next level. Some of the missions will have you looking at a situation that you're just thinking, there's absolutely no way we're getting through this. There's no way we're beating this. This combination of cards came up. This is impossible. And you're coming up with strategies as you get into the first trick or the second trick, that you're like, okay, well, hang on. If we did it this way, we could do it, but you can't communicate that strategy. And so you're trying to, with subtle clues or using the limited communication options you have. And when people start to latch onto those strategies or come up with better ones that you didn't think of, and then you're latching onto theirs, that's where the genius of this game comes out, and that's where it really, really makes you feel so good about what you're playing. The missions where that happens are just some of the best experiences I've had in 2020, and even maybe in general, playing a board game, playing a card game. I've played this in person, I've played this online. It is so great, and it is a game that I'm glad I was able to still play on Board Game Arena. For those who don't know, it's on Board Game Arena if you're looking for a way to play this virtually. I'm glad I was able to play it virtually, because otherwise I wouldn't have played it nearly enough this year with having been quarantined. But it's just so good. It's so simple. I love games that are super simple, but just attain this level of genius through their simple mechanics, and The Crew is easily one of those. I'm glad it got so much attention. It's made a bunch of people's lists. It makes mine at number 3. It almost slotted in at 2 and almost slotted in at 1. There's just been so many great games, but if you haven't checked this out, I would highly recommend getting it. Even just check it out on Board Game Arena, give it a couple plays on a few rounds, and just try a couple different missions, see if it's for you. It's a trick-taking game that does so many more things beyond a trick-taking game, and I just cannot recommend it enough. That is The Crew, The Quest for Planet 9, my number 3. Coming in at number 2 is Tidal Blades Heroes of the Reef. Tidal Blades is such a beautiful game. And I said earlier that I'm a sucker for aesthetics, I'm a sucker for theme, and it's one of the things that just draws me into a game. Tidal Blades does that in spades. It's insane how beautiful this game is. I kickstarted this game and I kickstarted the deluxe version, so even the component quality is just something that has absolutely blown me away with the extra deluxe components that I got. Putting this game out on the table is just, it's rare that I can set up a game that I've already played, and just in setting it up, my excitement level builds because of everything I'm looking at. And Tidal Blades is one of those experiences. It looks like a game that's super imposing at first, and like if I were to set this up and say, okay, I'm going to teach you this game, I'm sure people would just feel completely overwhelmed at first. But at its core, the mechanics are actually pretty simple. A lot of it just comes down to doing tests in different arenas that are around the board, around the table. And those tests are very simple to execute. They just have to do with cards that are in your hand and dice that you're rolling, essentially. And the dice that you're rolling can be upgraded and they can be manipulated. And each individual hero that you're, character that you're controlling out of the 4 has their own unique set of abilities, which means that every time you can play a different character and get a different experience. Not only that, you're not going to see all the character's abilities when you play, and you can have different character builds. So when you play character A and you build them this certain way, next time you can play character A again and build them a completely different way. There's so much to love about this game. It's a game that I'm glad it started getting some attention, because it's a game that I will admit, I kickstarted it, I backed it, and I kind of forgot that I did, and I got a notification that it was being shipped, and I was super pumped to remember that I had backed this and that it was coming. But I'm glad that people started to find it and it's getting some attention, because it's a game I think that rightfully deserves it, and there's likely more content coming for it, because it specifically says part 1 on the box, so there's got to be at least plans for a part 2. Such a great game. Don't let the complexity of everything you're seeing fool you. We have a how to play video as well if you want some help, and it is one of our longer how to play videos. But again, don't let that fool you. It's just being thorough and explaining everything. Once you learn this game, it's very easy to not forget those mechanics and to teach them to other people. So much to love about this game. I'm going to just continue to gush about it if I keep talking. So I will just say that's my number 2, and it rightfully deserves that spot. That's Tidal Blades Heroes of the Reef. Check it out if you can. All right, so my number 1 game that I played in 2020 was a surprise to me, because when I first bought this game, I expected to like it, but I'll say my expectations were muted. And I don't know why, but the fact that this ended up being my favorite game of 2020 speaks volumes to how good this game is. That is My City by Reiner Knizia. This is a legacy polyomino game, which is a genre mashup that I didn't know I needed, but absolutely did. I can boil down the rules of this game at its core. The base game, when you first start playing at the very first chapter, to you flip a card, and whatever tile it tells you to place, you place it. That's the game to start. There's restrictions on how you can place these tiles, and the game expands far beyond that mechanic. But the fact that you can sit down and play chapter 1, and that is the essential base major rule you need to know, and beyond, and with that you're pretty much equipped to start playing this game, makes it so easy to introduce this game to people. And the slow build of getting to be a more complex polyomino is just the right pace. It's super exciting to open each envelope and see what they're going to add. The design is so tight, and everything that they add makes every chapter feels like it's an expansion on the game, but a really good expansion on the game. So you play chapter 3 and you're familiar with the base mechanics, but they've twisted in this brand new way that makes you have to rediscover everything across 3 new sessions, but it's still just as exciting. You're going to love certain chapters over other ones a little bit more. You're going to love certain mechanics a little bit more, but none of them felt bad. It's a game that if you're stuck at home because of lockdown, because of things going on in the world, and you need a game to play with a roommate or your wife or husband or girlfriend or partner of any kind, and it's going to last you multiple sessions, but doesn't demand hours and hours of your time each time you sit down, there's no better game currently out there, in my opinion, than My City. Not to mention that if you want to play for hours, you can just do multiple chapters, and there's going to be a few sessions where you're going to sit down and say, let's just keep playing because this is so much fun. I can't express how good this game is in words. I can't find the words for it. If you don't, the only way I think you're not gonna like this game is if you're just not a fan of polyomino style games. If you don't like that puzzle of piecing tiles together, if that's frustrating to you, that is the base of this game, the foundation of this game. If you're not a fan of that, you're not gonna like this. But if you are a fan of that, or if you're even just find that to be okay, I think there's a lot to love here because of how much it adds on to that play style, how much it injects into it as you go, and the twists are just so cool to navigate and have to amend your strategies and playing styles depending on what the game throws at you. Reiner Knizia is one of my favorite game designers, and he's hit an absolute home run in marrying these two genres together. If you have not checked out My City, this is the game out of every single one on the list I recommend the highest out of all of them. We have a video up where myself and Carlo discuss our first impressions having played through half of My City, so there won't be a whole ton of spoilers, and then we actually keep it pretty spoiler free for the most part. So go check that out if you want to hear more about us and our love for this game. But it's a game that I absolutely recommend you check out. It absolutely earns the #1 spot on my list, and I'm going to be playing this game for a long time to come, because the good thing is it's not just a legacy game. After you're done, you get a finished board, a finished game that you can play endlessly, just as you would any of his other any other Knizia games. So My City, my #1 game that I played in 2020. And that's it. 5 games that I wish that I had played in 2020 but didn't, and my top 5 games of 2020 that I did play. Which games would be on your list? Let me know if I missed any obvious choices. There's going to be some that I just didn't play because of not being able to get my hands on them, or because I just couldn't properly experience them with only, being able to play with 2 people. But if there's any you think I should check out, that it should be on my games that I should play in 2020, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear so I can add more to the list, because as soon as things open back up and I can start having gaming groups again, I'm going to overwhelm them with how many board games we're going to play. So more that I can add to that list, the better. So let me know in the comments. And if you think I got the order wrong in my top 5, if you think there's other games that I played because you saw our videos and you're wondering which ones maybe just missed my list or should have made my list, just let me know in the comments. Let's start a discussion. I'd love to hear from you. I'm always curious what everyone's favorite games were at the end of a year, because everyone loves things a little bit differently and everyone enjoys different genres, and it's always cool to see which ones crack people's lists. Again, this is just my personal list. This is not by any means a definitive ranking of these games. I have a distinct style. I love polyomino games. I love worker placement games. I love complex campaign style games and big games like Tidal Blades that are on the table. So these are the games that attracted me the most and got my attention the most, hit my table the most. It might be different for you. So just let me know in the comments what you think about the list. Let me know your top 5 games of 2020. And if you really like this video, if you enjoyed it, if you like our content in general, consider leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. It's the best way to support everything that we're doing. We've seen this huge influx recently in people joining our channel and commenting and subscribing, and it's just been overwhelming, the support that we've been getting. I would love to have more of you come in and watch our videos and discuss them in the comments. So subscribe if you can, like if you can. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.